In at the crossroads. Lyanna's father and brother had already made it to the river road by the time she got to the inn at the crossroads. She was stunned to find Rhaegar and his group there on the Prince's Progress. She didn't know Littlefinger, nor did she notice the strange boys staring at them from the corner. Lyanna took Rhaegar aside excitedly and told him what she overheard of his danger. She was near hysterics about it. Rhaegar took her words to heart, then offered her an escort back north, but she had already decided she was not going home to marry Robert. She was going to help Rhaegar instead. She offered to guard him and was laughed at by his friends, which made her turn red and yell at them. She then pleaded with Rhaegar to go with them so that she could prevent her brother from doing anything foolish. She felt that she would be able to convince Brandon that there was a better way. Rhaegar was so impressed by the wolf girl he agreed to her demands. She had just saved him, and it was only fair that he saved her back. However, they needed to get far away from the north quickly. Rhaegar grasped her arm protectively and escorted her out of the inn. They hit the road towards Summerhall, where they could use his base there to come up with a plan of action. A while later, days maybe, Brandon arrived at the inn from Riverrun looking for Littlefinger, who was still waiting for a guide through the snow to the Vale. When he found him, Brandon despaired of not having killed him before he had dishonored his fiancée's sister, Lysa. With the wounds of the duel still stinging, Littlefinger decided to save his own hide and told Brandon that he was astounded that he was more interested in Catelyn's sister than his own. He had just seen Lyanna in a heated conversation with Prince Rhaegar, yelling and pleading before his whole group went off together in a hurry, with Rhaegar grabbing Lyanna and bundling her onto a horse before they rode off at top speed down the King's Road towards King's Landing. Littlefinger added that Rhaegar Targaryen was stopping the alliance with the Baratheons by taking Lyanna. He said this to appeal to Brandon's political aims as well as familial. Brandon inquired of the other inn patrons and received confirmation of this story. This was Littlefinger taking the first steps on the road to discovering the virtues of chaos. When he got back home in the Fingers, he sent a letter to Catelyn, but the only answer he received was much later to hear of Catelyn's betrothal to Ned. He could not know until he encountered Lysa again that this outcome was not from his letter going awry. Robert's Rebellion. Rhaegar's group arrived at Summerhall and began to coordinate their security for Rhaegar's life and to assess their assets. Lyanna thought about sending a raven home, but realized that it would be Wallace that would receive it. She may possibly even have sent one to Benjen that was intercepted by the maester. The Vale was out of the question with Robert there. She wondered about the situation at Riverrun, but didn't know if she would be betraying Rhaegar to his enemies by writing her family there. After the death of Rickard and Brandon, when Ned was on his way back to Winterfell, Wallace tried to take control of Winterfell by appointing himself regent of the 14-year-old child Benjen. The boy resisted the control and would put himself forward into any council held by Wallace and the steward. Benjen wanted to know what was being done to locate his sister, and was told by Wallace that if the little slut Lyanna wanted to betray her family and whore around with Rhaegar, then she deserved to share his fate. Kill them both. Benjen lost it at this threat to his favorite sibling and attacked Wallace in private and killed him, accidentally most likely, right before Ned got back. Benjen confessed everything to Ned out of guilt. They covered up the murder by telling Winterfell that Wallace went back to the Citadel or some such lie. They sent a letter to the Citadel informing them of Wallace's apparent heart attack. The Citadel sent Maester Luwin as a replacement. When the news of the marriage of Catelyn and Ned reached the Citadel, they had Luwin travel to Riverrun in hopes that the marriage bed bore fruit. There needed to be a Stark at Winterfell. Ned would delay justice until his return from war. Benjen must stay put. The guilt over the murder and being Lyanna's secret keeper made him decide to join the Watch's penance. Or this could have been the new Lord of Winterfell's first covert sentence for the crimes of this child murderer, who was also his brother. Rhaegar's posse were still at Summerhall and well into their plans to usurp Aerys when a hiccup occurred. They uncovered the news of the deaths of Brandon and Rickard, and Lyanna was inconsolable for a time. Rhaegar's feelings of guilt, his patience, and tender consolation of Lyanna saw them fall into each other's arms, and they realized that they truly loved each other. He then saw Lyanna as his way to fulfill prophecy. After Lyanna had accepted her loss, he divulged the prophecy to her. He wanted her participation. He was a Targaryen prince and could marry whom and how many he wished. He told her that Elia would die if she had any more children and had agreed the prophecy was more important. He made sure Lyanna knew that his marriage with Elia had been friendly but loveless. Lyanna thought about the possibilities for a moment, princess and then queen with the man she loved. his Rhaenys. Destiny. She agreed, as long as they married, and he promised he would never sleep with any other women. They stayed there and married at Summerhall, where Rhaegar was born, maybe with the ghost of High Heart as a witness or officiant. The Woods Witch was of the old gods, and Lyanna would listen to her. The faith of the Seven had yet to take hold in Winterfell. Lyanna would be protected as his wife, whereas she wouldn't have been as his concubine, giving birth to his bastard. She would keep her status and honor as a lady, no matter who won the war. She would be safer from Robert's anger at the broken betrothal. There was no annulment. To get an annulment would require many more people to find out and endanger them all. Lyanna was convinced that Rhaegar would never sleep with his wife again for Elya's safety, and she ironically wouldn't have wanted to birth a bastard. She wasn't looking for power, just respect and her dragon prince by her side. After the battle at Gulltown, when the news of the armies converging at Summerhall reached them, Rhaegar spoke to Sir Arthur Dayne to find another base to work from, and they decamped to the Tower of Joy. Robert did not outwardly appear as yet to be one to murder women and children. He was Ned's best friend, and Ned would never condone that, ever. They stayed at the tower and received detailed intelligence of the war. He worked behind the scenes, sending messages and ravens to hobble his father's army. The war had officially started the moment his father sent for Ned and Robert's heads after all. The rebels and Rhaegar's group were both fighting Aerys. He had decided that once the war reached a certain point, after enough of his father's loyalist armies were routed, he would meet the rebel army leaders on the field and let them know they were fighting the same war. They would meet, reconcile, then descend on his father with their united armies, and he would take his place on the Iron Throne. Lyanna would join him to reunite with her brother and back up his story. Rhaegar was fighting a war of espionage. He did not want to be seen fighting the rebels or his new wife's kin. They were taking out the armies unyieldingly loyal to his father, after all. He could easily lose the North if he joined the fight too early. He was instructing Mace Tyrell and his wife Lady Allery Hightower directly to keep the Reach's armies fresh for him. Lyanna, however, soon became pregnant with the third head of the dragon. Rhaegar came out of hiding when his father sent Gerald Hightower to find him and left his very pregnant wife to answer his father's call. The Woods Witch could be her midwife. He knew it was time to act, whatever her condition, and regretted that Lyanna would not be at his side. His Kingsguard friends had sworn an oath to protect his second wife and third child. He ordered Gerald Hightower to remain as an extra precaution, as Lyanna shouldn't be traveling, and she might try to sneak out and join him on the field. When he got to King's Landing, he pushed his father to call on Tywin Lannister. He asked Jaime to keep an eye on his first wife and children, and to keep them safe. Jaime was a good boy of 17, and the only Kingsguard to be left in the city. He knew there was a rift between Tywin and his father, and he felt that the Lannisters would emerge on his side. The Tyrells entered the war ostensibly on Aerys' side, but all they did was to keep the fighting to a minimum. Then, they besieged Storm's End to bar Robert from returning to his homeland to strengthen his southern communications hub, until Rhaegar joined the armies. Thus, they kept their troops fresh and waited to become Rhaegar's regiment against Aerys after the rebellion was quelled. Tywin was on the sidelines in silence.